it's Brittany from NotYourAverageFox.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make maple bourbon apple butter. Recently we went with some good friends of ours to Haney's Appledale farm, and we went apple picking, and I wanted to make a recipe with you all to kind of go along with that video. Ultimately what I ended up deciding on was apple butter, and I didn't want to make just a regular apple butter. I wanted it to be kind of a little bit different, and I'd stumbled upon that you can add bourbon into apple butter, and I thought that would be simply amazing. So of course, first of all, what you're going to need is apples. For this recipe I'm going to use 6 pounds of apples. So besides apples, you're also going to need bourbon, maple syrup, cinnamon, orange vitality essential oil, and then you're going to need either water, apple juice, or apple cider. To make apple butter, you're going to want to use more of a sweet apple. Now if you make apple pie, they recommend using like Granny Smith apples and more tart apples, but because apple butter doesn't have near as much sugar content, they do recommend they use more of a sweet apple. So what we've got here, we've got a mix of some McIntosh apples, and I'm not sure what these are. Someone can chime in if they know what it is. You can let me know in the comments, but it's kind of between a sweet and a tart apple. So that's what I've got. It's just a mixture of these, just enough to create 6 pounds. So now that we've got our apples here, I'm gonna wash these, and then I'm gonna core them and cut them up. I've got this apple core here, and that will core it and then chop it into little pieces. And then I'm going to use this knife to additionally chop it up. But if you have more of a fancy option, by all means 100% go for it. Now that I've got all of my apples chopped up and put inside my, my Dutch oven here, I'm going to go ahead and add my apple juice. So I'm going to add 3/4 a cup of apple juice to this. Now that we've added our apple juice, I'm going to go ahead and get this on the stove, and I'm going to simmer this for about 45 minutes or maybe close to an hour. We're just going to wait until they get nice and soft, and then we'll put them in the blender after they're done. So now I'm going to go ahead and move them over to the stove. Okay, these have been on the stove simmering for about 30 minutes. And they're getting pretty good and mushy. I'm going to go ahead and transfer them into the blender and get them just as smooth as I can. Now that we have made applesauce in the blender, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. So first I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of bourbon. We use 4 roses. So we'll add that first. And the alcohol content will cook out of this. If you would like to leave the alcohol content in it, I would recommend adding this after it's already been cooked. But since I don't want the alcohol in my apple butter, I'm going to go ahead and add it now before we start cooking it. Okay. Next you're going to want to add 2/3 cup of maple syrup. That straight inside. Okay, and then I've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and then lastly I'm going to add 1 drop of orange essential oil. I use Young Living, and I would only recommend Young Living or doTERRA essential oils. So 1 drop. This stuff is very, very potent, so you don't want to overpower it by adding too much. If you don't have essential oil, you can add in half a teaspoon of orange zest. Just add 1 drop. Okay. And now we're just going to blend all this up again. Now I'm finally done making my apple butter, and here's the result. This recipe will yield about 48 ounces, and this is a 16-ounce mason jar, and it filled to the brim nearly about 3 of these. So I would say about 48 ounces would be a close estimate as to how much that this would make. Sometimes when the apple butter is cooking, it'll get a little bit lumpy. So to help with that, you can just stick it back in the blender. That's what I did after it got finished in the oven. I pulled it from the oven, let it cool slightly, and then I put it back into the blender and gave it another good few pulses before I transferred them into these little jars. As far as peeling goes, I mean, that's kind of your preference. If you have a great blender that is able to blend up the peeling, then I would say just leave it on there. I mean, most of your nutrition is in the peeling, so I feel like that it's probably the easy way out. If you have a super cool contraption that peels your apples for you really fast, that may be a good option. It'll make your apple butter really smooth and creamy. So honestly, if I probably had that, I would have went with that option. But the little teeny tiny granules of peeling doesn't really bother me a whole lot anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of video, then be sure to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I usually post on motherhood, natural, and sustainable living. You can also head over to my blog over at notyouraveragefox.com for more. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye!
Hello guys! You don't know, this is my big monster truck. My birthday was second after one of my friends' birthdays, but I ate some stuff and we just went outside. There's a wall that hangs outside.